Hi, this is the video for Module 5, and I'm going to talk about a few things. There's a lot in this module, and well, anyway, I'll get to the housekeeping things at the end. But in Spring, Chapter 5, you're already on Chapter 5 of Spring, he talks more about the common school and, the mid 1800s and what education is like and how, the ideology of the common school of creating a level playing field for everyone and for educating the rich with the poor in a common schoolhouse, creating a common culture, and how this is, essentially rebutted by the fact that we have a multicultural society and the fact that we have many segregated schools and educational systems within the country at this time in U.S. history. The Native Americans have their own school systems in many cases, their own ways of teaching in many cases. African Americans have set up their own schools to help educate well, obviously not before slavery is ended, but in the northern part of the country, slaves can't even be educated. So they're prevented from having education in the southern states. Of course, in the northern states, there's some segregated schools that they do set up to help educate the young African Americans. And then, of course, that's going on in other areas of the country with Mexicans too, Mexican Americans. And, as the nation expands and as Manifest Destiny leads us across the nation, you'll see a lot of the effects of how much of the United States used to be Mexico, and now we have a lot of former Mexicans now living in America. So, that'll be talked about in one of the later modules. And then also with Irish Catholics, there's a big to do that happens, of course, with violence even breaks out. And that's the other thing. When you watch the PowerPoint for Chapter 5, Spring Chapter 5, make sure that you view the, there's some embedded little videos. So make sure you're watching the PowerPoint in PowerPoint mode. You may end up having to download it to your computer first. I think I had to in order to play, because you have to click on the little links. And if you're not watching it in not PowerPoint mode, slideshow mode, if you're not watching it in slideshow mode, they don't work. So there's several little videos, and I think I've given you an arrow to click on the ones that you need to. But there's a lot of interesting information there. There's a lot of interesting information about Sequoyah and the Cherokee and how they had set up their own school system that was actually very effective, until they were forced off of their land in the Trail of Tears. But anyway, you're going to do an activity at the end of that PowerPoint. The directions are at the end, and it's called a quilt piece. I used to use this in language arts. You've probably heard it under a different name, but it's a 4-square sort of a format. I've given you the format, and you're basically going to identify a term that you'd like to define, and then you write a sentence with it, and then you choose sort of an image that will help you remember what the term means. It was an activity that I used in social studies. I used it when I taught science. You can use it pretty much in any subject matter. So I'm just trying to show you some different activities that you can use. And essentially what you'll do if you're in a class setting, you would take your quilt pieces. I'm going to try and do this here. And I'm just showing you an example from other classes. You would then go tape them all together. I know that's probably not going to come across in video, but you would basically tape all your quilt pieces together and you create, this quilt. So anyway, so that's what you're going to do. Actually, that's for your journal number 3 entry, along with a summary. And the directions for that are in Module 5, and they're in the PowerPoint. If you have any questions about it, just, email me. Then you're going to watch Judgment Day. You have a link. This is a PBS video. It's a very touchy subject. It talks about essentially teaching evolution and creationism, and which can be taught, which cannot be taught in public schools. And this went all the way to the, I don't know if it went all the way to the Supreme Court. I think it went to a lower court, but a federal court. Anyway, I can't even remember right now. I'll have to go review. I suppose I should have done that before the video. Or anyway, you'll watch Judgment Day. It's a very, very, very interesting court case. It's a very interesting story. It just happened recently. It happened up in Pennsylvania. It was not, down here in the South. So don't be misled that these things don't happen outside of the South. They do. And it's a very touchy subject. I remember I never taught life sciences, but I did teach eighth grade earth science once for about 3 years, a long time ago. And I did have a student come to me and tell me that her mom didn't want her to learn about the Big Bang theory because I taught astronomy. I taught, about the Big Bang at the time. And, I had to find another alternative assignment for her to do and that kind of thing. But you'd be surprised where some of these things do come up sometimes. And I think that what I really want you to get out of this is, first of all, understanding the legalities of everything and how it affects you as a teacher. Understanding the First Amendment, the religious clause, the establishment clause, and the free exercise clause. Those are very important. We'll talk about that more in another module as well. But how are you going to deal with things as a teacher with controversial topics as a teacher? So you really need to sort of ask yourself this, or when you're in a school setting, even if you're going to be a speech pathologist or something else. So it's very interesting to know how it will affect your day-to-day life. I know there's a court case right now about, under God in the pledge, and that could certainly change the way that we begin classes every day in public schools if that thing ends up going through. Anyway, so you're going to watch Judgment Day, and for that one, there's some discussion questions on a PowerPoint. You'll also watch a PowerPoint for that after you watch the movie, and there's some questions on one of the slides, and you'll answer those questions as your discussion for the week, for Module 5, sorry. So in Chapter 3 in Ravitch, I think this is a great example. She talks about the transformation of District 2. And she talks about a district in New York and how they had this just wonderful, superintendent who took over, and he was able to just really do great things with the school. And she basically examines it a lot closer, and experts jumped on. They thought, oh, here's this miracle cure, here's this miracle formula now, and we have to apply it to everybody and hope that it works, or it must work, because I think there is this sort of this idea in education as time goes on that if we could just find the right formula, then we could apply it for everybody, and everybody would learn to read, and we wouldn't have any social promotion, and everything would be grand and great. And I think we really have to ask ourselves, is there such a thing as one size fits all in education? I know what my opinion is, so hopefully you can develop your own opinion about that. In Darling Hammond, Chapter 3, she gives a really thorough, as she always does, a very thorough examination of how testing narrows the opportunity gap. And she gives sort of a step-by-step, examples of, it's a great idea to have testing, to have standardized testing in order to hold everybody accountable, or at least to evaluate and hopefully improve what you're doing. I mean, nobody, I think, will argue that standardized tests aren't useful. They are useful. But what happens when they're used in such a high-stakes manner that people start gaming the system, when you start punishing students and teachers and schools and districts, and you give them an F rating on the front door of the school that how can you attract teachers? So I think she really gives sort of a breakdown of how this happens. We can say that accountability has turned out to be bad, but I think she gives a lot of examples of exactly how that's happened, about social promotion, whether or not we should be advancing students even if they can't read, and what it does to them, and the statistics of dropouts of students who have been held back. Does it really help the student? These types of things. And she also talks about the Texas Miracle, which essentially helped motivate NCLB, No Child Left Behind. So I think it's a really important chapter that breaks down, like I said, exactly how standardized testing has been sort of perverted over time and used in the wrong way. Because again, standardized testing could be used as a tool, as one of many tools to help evaluate and hopefully improve, schools and teachers and everybody if it's not used as punishment. So anyway, and then she talks also about, I think, testing without investing, and that's also very important for you guys to grasp that idea that it's okay if you hold students accountable and say, hey, you better learn this, but are you putting in place all of the resources that are needed in a school setting in the classroom? Do you have qualified teachers that are going to help the students actually achieve these high goals that you've set for them? So those are all very important things that come up in Module 6. Let's see. You need to start thinking about your educational issue project. You really should start, hopefully picking an issue. I think I have you finally narrow down the issue that the educational issue you'd like to choose for your educational project that you're going to do and turn in toward the end of the semester. I'm also going to show Lolly's Kin on February 11th at noon in Adderhold 627. I hope that many of you can make it. If you can't, I totally understand. I can also do it again on Thursday at noon if that's a better day for some of you. But I know if you have a Tuesday, Thursday class that's at that time, you probably can't. Or if you're, far off campus. I think that's it about Module 6. If I've forgotten something, I'm sure you will let me know. I hope that everything is going smoothly. I hope that the recent weather didn't, affect you in a bad way. I know that Atlanta was pretty much shut down. Anyway, so I think that's it about Module 6. Oh, and if you haven't let me know where you're doing your field experience, then please go ahead and email me that. I just want to know. I just want to check it off and make sure that you've, thought about where you're going to be doing your field experience. Okay? All right. I'll talk to you in Module 6.